Bald Thug remembers his past where he completely turned into a minion of a vampire lord after being bitten by him. He was a low-rank vampire. He killed and drank the blood of his own henchmen. Professor Red was quite happy after witnessing it. In the present, a henchman of the bald vampire knocks on the car's door. His henchman reports that they just got a confirmation that their new prey has arrived. According to the comments, there are 3 of them and they are waiting in the park. They start heading towards Sangu's party on their car. Bald Vampire tells his lackey that it's their 17th prey. The H apartment is quite big and complex, that's why it's easy to lure people there. The apartment residents stay quiet, saying it's none of their business, but once they run out of prey, they will target the apartment residents. They spot 3 targets and the bald vampire orders his lackey to run them over. Those 3 targets were actually disguised bone skeletons. Sangu turns them into bone spear weapons, which pierce the car. Sangu punches through the window and drags the bald vampire outside. Bald Vampire tries to imitate Sangu and Sangu kicks his chin. Sangu asks him about the number of people they got upstairs. Bald Vampire turns into a complete vampire and tries to kill Sangu, but Riley chops off one of his hands. Bald Vampire's lackey becomes scared after watching him. Sangu asks his lackey about their number and he tells Sangu there are 8 people upstairs. He was about to reveal more information, but Bald Vampire beheads him. Hanho and Jisoo becomes disgusted after watching Bald Vampire kill his own ally. Bald Vampire's wrist bones are morphing into a pointed blade. He starts drinking blood from the head of his lackey. It turns out he got healed after drinking blood and his stats have also increased. He was originally a 3-star ninja, but he became a low-rank vampire after Professor Red bit his neck. Once someone becomes a vampire, they are stuck at level 1. But that's not much of a hindrance because if they kill humans instead of monsters, they can absorb their stats by drinking their blood. Bald Vampire activates Berserk mode, which increases all of his stats temporarily by 20%. But there is a big penalty of Berserk mode, which occurs after exiting Berserk mode. It reduces their stats by 50% for 10 hours. Sangu thinks that this vampire class is even more gruesome than his Necromancer class. Sangu tells Hanho and Jisoo to get behind him. He also orders his minions to attack the vampire, but he is quite fast, and he easily manages to dodge the attacks of the skeletons. He goes directly for Sangu, but Sangu blocks his attack with his shield. Jisoo Hyan attacks him with her swords, but Bald Vampire easily dodges it, and they both start exchanging blows. Hanho throws daggers, but the vampire blocks them. Hanho keeps throwing daggers like a Gatling gun, which pisses off the vampire. He dashes towards Hanho, but Raid successfully parries his attack. He tries to slash the neck of the vampire, but Vampire somehow dodges it. Sangu comes from behind with his shield, but Vampire destroys his shield with one slash attack. They both start exchanging blows, and the vampire is quite confident at this point. Jisoo Hyan tries to sneak attack him from behind with her burning sword, but the vampire is too fast and manages to dodge it. Raid was at the back of Jisoo, and he jumps at Vampire and manages to cut off his arm again. Sangu orders his minion to attack the vampire, but his backup arrives in time. Thugs also become afraid after watching their boss's true form. His arm is getting regenerated, but Jisoo chops it off again. An orc skeleton tries to attack Vampire, but he smashes him, and it turns out that orc skeleton was just a mere bait. Sangu stabs his sword through his orc skeleton, which pierces the vampire's neck, and Sangu finally chops his head off. Sangu's party receives 1,000 gold for killing a level 1 player. Now Sangu knows exactly what was going on in H apartments. They were killing off other players for their gold and experience. Vampire's lackey gets surrounded by Sangu's minions. Sangu tells them to drop their weapons or he will kill them all. Thugs are afraid and they drop their weapons. They tell Sangu about their true boss, but they also have limited information about him, and this was their first time watching their bald boss's true form. Sangu realizes that their real boss has a 5 or more stars glass because he can make other players into monsters. Sangu asks the thugs about how many people they killed, and one of them tells them that they killed 21 or 22 people. Sangu becomes enraged and orders his minions to kill all of them. They receive a total of 5,000 gold for killing all of them. Even Hanho and Jisoo Yoon become surprised after watching it, but Sangu tells them that if they don't kill them now, they will start killing other innocent people. Hanho and Jisoo Yoon agree with Sangu's decision. The next morning, someone posted that the people in apartment H were murderers, and he barely escaped with his life. He was observing them from afar, but some other player finished them all off with his skeletons. Sergeant Kim becomes happy after reading it because he knows it must be Songwoo's party. Sergeant Kim posts some appreciation comments about Songwoo's party, and other students Songwoo helped back in the school are also posting good stuff about Songwoo, but no one knows his real name. In a depopulated building, we see a glimpse of a mysterious figure who became happy after reading the comments, and they head off to an unknown location. Hanho tells Songwoo about a new post by a guy named Prosecutor. Someone posted that if people want to post something and they lack gold, they can just comment down below this post and help each other. He also provided some other minor information like how they can use this setting to change their nicknames. Most of the comments are about missing family members or useful information about synergies and wolves, which can jump 2 stories high. Songwoo's party arrives at Hanho's place, and Hanho hopes his parents are still alive. Inside the building, there are quite a few dead orcs laying around under the stairs. Hanho prays for his parents' safety. After arriving at the room 202, Hanho desperately calls for his mom, and his parents rush out to see their child. It turns out his parents didn't pick a class card. Hanho is skeptical about his dad because he used to play card games all the time. Songwoo asks them about how they managed to stop those orcs. It turns out those orcs ran away after Hanho's father used pesticide spray on them. Everyone becomes shocked after hearing it. After they finish eating food, Hanho's mom thanks Jisoo and Songwoo for bringing their good-for-nothing son back to them. She also prepared some green tea for them. Hanho tells his mom about the awesome things he did to help his party, but she asks her son to shut up. After watching the lights from outside, some biker guys give off a grin smile. Meanwhile, inside the building, Jisoo is happy after taking a shower, and she thanks Hanho's mom for the pajamas. Songwoo and Hanho are taking shower along with Ride. Songwoo is happy to see Hanho's parents alive. He thinks that Hanho's father was quite lucky. He used pesticides against orcs, whose biggest strength is their sense of smell. Songwoo knows that Hanho must be overjoyed because he found his parents. Songwoo tells them that this is not a safe place to stay. The orcs which came before were just mere scouts, and it will turn into an all-out war if their main group arrives. But the main problem is that they don't know where to go next. It turns out, Prosecutor again made a post. He tells the survivors that one of his friend is a 3-stars pioneer, and they created a small safe area inside Yongyungpo Station, where monsters can't enter. But the survivors need to provide gold or rations because pioneer skills take up a lot of resources to maintain. Songwoo is skeptical, but he knows what the prosecutor guy said can be true because their world has become a game. But they can't take Hanho's parents there because it is quite far away from their location. There is another comment by a guy called Section Chief Gu, who claims to be a 3-star pioneer, but he can only let in others if they give him rent. This guy is in Hwasong Fortress, which is 20 minutes away if they travel on a bus, and Songwoo's party decides to head over there. The next morning, they start heading over to Hwasong Fortress along with Hanho's parents. Hanho's dad informs them about some delinquent who steals resources from other survivors. Songwoo is a bit worried about these third-rate delinquents running amok. Soon, some delinquents arrive at their location on their bikes. A cocky delinquent girl addresses them as Geezers and tells them to hand over their resources and gold, which pisses off Songwoo. Songwoo is about to order his minions, which are hiding in a building behind him, but suddenly they hear a sound, and all delinquents make a run for it. Soon, a pack of giant wolves arrives, but they are not attacking Songwoo's party mindlessly. Songwoo's party is at a disadvantage, so he tells his companions to slowly back away. After getting inside the building, one of the wolves tries to attack them, but Songwoo uses his brain and throws a slime-filled bottle at the face of the wolf. His minions start throwing bone spears at him, and the wolf dies. The second wolf tries to run away, but one of Songwoo's minions tries to stop him. Wolf bites the minions, but it was a trap, and Wolf's mouth becomes filled with slime liquid. Righty leaps towards the exhausted wolf and finishes him off with one strike. The last wolf becomes afraid after watching it, but he soon gets pierced by spears. They receive 240 gold per wolf they slayed, and Songwoo's level has risen up to 7. Jisoo Yoon is a bit worried because she thinks they are becoming a burden to Songwoo, but he tells her that they are quite helpful. But he is skeptical about Hanho's growth. Songwoo tries to resurrect the wolf, but his level is quite low for that. The next morning, a helicopter is being followed by some wyverns. Suddenly, a field boss wyvern alpha male appears in front of them, and it easily destroys the helicopter. Songwoo and his friends were watching it from a window, and they think even army is no longer a match for these monsters. Songwoo's party can't go forward because some wyverns are sleeping ahead on rooftops. Songwoo suggests to take a break for now, and they will leave once the wyverns go away. Night falls and the wyverns are still sleeping on the rooftops. Suddenly a message pops up which tells them that they should pick a class card, which will help them survive in this apocalypse. Manhua tells his parents to choose a card with the most stars this time. A 15-second countdown starts, and cards appear in front of them. These same cards are also presented to other survivors too, and they disappear after someone chooses them. Manhua is trying his best to find a card with the most stars, but Sangu thinks simply picking a card with the most stars is not a good option, and he should pick a card which combines well with his Necromancer class. Sangu picks a 3-star Dark Mage Link card, and it combines with his Necromancer class to grant him new skills. He got a skill called Death Aura which buffs his minions and debuffs his enemies. Manhua was trying to pick a 4-star card, but someone else picked it before him, and he accidentally tapped on a 1-star Priest card. He got a new skill which shields him from his enemies for 10 seconds after he kills an enemy. Manhua's father picked a 3-star Pioneer card, and he can now make safety zones. Sangu is quite happy, because now they don't need to go to Hwasong Fortress anymore. Manhua's father is quite overjoyed by his new Pioneer class. Manhua's mother picked a 1-star Chef card, and Manhua tells her she should have picked a class which could have helped them during their fights. Manhua's parents become sad after hearing it, because they raised Manhua for 20 years. And now their son wants them to fight. Jai-Cyan picked a 3-star Hitman card. Her new passive skill, Supreme Sense, heightens her senses whenever she's in danger. Jai-Cyan thinks she needs to become stronger so she can be more helpful to Sangu. Sangu asks Manhua's father to explain the skills of Pioneer. This skill costs 10 mana after every 10 minutes to create a safe zone whose surface area is 2150 square feet, and its height is limited to 33 feet. Once the user runs out of mana, this skill starts consuming 100 gold per every 10 minutes. The shield around the zone regenerates over time, but it can be destroyed by powerful attacks. Sangu tells them that they can't afford to use this skill right now, and they will only use it for emergencies. Sangu further tells them that the other groups with Pioneer will try to abuse their power, and Sangu's party will stay away from them. Meanwhile, the wyverns have rested enough, and they take off. Sangu asks Manhua to check the location of a store or a roulette machine on the forum, because he needs to spend his gold and get stronger. Soon, they hear motorbike sounds, and they become alerted. Sangu has an idea. They will ask the motorbike punks about the location of the store. It turns out these delinquents were stuck in a meat shop while they were waiting for the wyverns to go away. Their leader, T-Song, is a level 6 fighter, and he needs a little bit more gold to spin the silver roulette this time. T-Song arrives at his hideout, but is suspiciously quieter than usual. When he gets inside a room, he finds his friends there, but they are quite sad about something. One of them tells T-Song that their friend, Yujin, had not collected enough money, so the vampire made her into a lesser vampire. T-Song becomes quite sad after seeing his friend as a lesser vampire. There's another vampire present in the room, and he asks T-Song why he killed his previous leader, Wu Xiok. T-Song replies that he had no other choice because their previous leader, Wu Xiok, had turned into a complete vampire, and he killed many people. The vampire informs T-Song that he will kill all of them next if they fail to gather 10,000 gold within 2 days. Suddenly, Sangu comes in with his party, and he is not happy with the customer service provided by these thugs. Vampire asks what they want, and Sangu replies he wants everything they have. Vampires becomes pissed, and his fangs become visible. After seeing his fangs, Sangu mistakes him for the real boss of thugs in each apartment. Vampire rushes at Sangu, and his minions get a hold of his hands. Sangu stabs the throat of the vampire, and he warns the vampire to not move, or else his head will fly off. Sangu asks him if he is the vampire lord, and he starts laughing. Vampire is quite powerful, and he breaks the skeletons holding him with his hands. He also mends the sword piercing his throat with his bare hands. He tries to go for Sangu again, but this time he gets hit by Hanho's daggers. Jisoo rushes at the vampire and chops one half of his arm. Vampire tries to regenerate his arm, but he gets burned halfway due to Jisoo Yun's fire whetstone effect. Jisoo attacks the vampire once more, and this time she completely severs the burned arm of the vampire. Vampire is about to get back at her by throwing the sword piece stuck in his throat, but she manages to dodge it thanks to her newly acquired skill, Supreme Sense. Due to the new skill of Sangu, his minions become more buffed, and the vampire gets 10 times weaker. Orc skeletons start mashing the vampire with their bare hands. Vampire can't bear any more beating, and he yields to Sangu's party. But in reality, he is just pretending to give up so he can somehow finish Sangu once he drops his guard. Sangu is not a child, and he sees through his lie. Sangu makes bone spears which pierce the vampire, rendering him motionless. Sangu asks the vampire if he had enough or he wants more piercing. Vampire tells Sangu that even though they managed to defeat him, but soon the day will arrive when their boss' true plan will come to fruition, and the likes of Sangu will be wiped out. Sangu had enough, so he tells Jisoo-yoon to finish off the vampire, and she receives 322 gold for killing a player. T-Song is quite surprised after witnessing the fight, and he begs for mercy. He tells Songwoo that he had nothing to do with that vampire. Songwoo tells them that it doesn't matter, and they should hand over everything they got. Hano tells Songwoo that these third-rate thugs had less gold than what he expected. Jisoo-yoon thinks that maybe this vampire was connected to the vampire at H Apartments. Songwoo tells them that the vampire boss is growing in power and he is quite crafty. He is using these lesser vampires to collect gold for him. Songwoo is afraid because the vampire they killed had the ability to turn other humans into lesser vampire, and soon the vampirism will spread like a virus. Songwoo needs to become stronger because they can barely defeat a single vampire, and if they get attacked by multiple vampires at once, they will be wiped out. Songwoo asks T-Song if there is a store nearby, and T-Song happily leads the way, but suddenly a red system message window pops up. There is a question in this message, and it is asking about what should be done to those people who are arrogant enough to not pick any card during second-class selection for players. Songwoo has a bad feeling about it. Suddenly a delinquent named Min-sik becomes afraid because he had not chosen any card during second-class selection. He never trusted the system, that's why he didn't choose anything. He tells T-Song that he is not only the one, but he also didn't pick any card. Another red system message pops up. The system is going to turn all those people who have not picked any cards into monsters. Min-sik is about to be turned into a monster, and he tells others to run away from him. Songwoo is afraid because once they completely transform into a monster, they will not stand a chance against them. Songwoo tells others that this is their only chance, and they should attack them. Raidi and his other minions rush at both of them before they can complete their transformation. Songwoo is a bit hesitant, but he has no other choice. His minions start attacking them, but a skeleton soldier dies with a clumsy hit from a werewolf, and it proves that Songwoo was right, and they need to die before they can fully transform into a monster. Finally, Songwoo's minions manage to kill both of them, and Songwoo receives 6,000 gold for killing them, and his level rises up to 8. Songwoo is astonished because the werewolves they killed outside Hano's apartment were just 240 gold coins, and these werewolves, which were not even fully transformed, are worth 3,000 gold each. Songwoo selects random stats cards as his level up award, and his speed increases by 3. Hano is afraid because now they have to fight against powerful monsters like these werewolves. Songwoo has a plan. Up until now, he has never tried to make a dead human into his minion, because he thought others will have a bad impression of him, but now the situation has changed. Songwoo successfully turns both werewolves into his minions. He thinks both of them are at least on par with vampires. T-Song is a bit worried because Songwoo turned his dead friend into his minion. Songwoo again asks him about the store, and he tells Songwoo that the store is in a used car complex. T-Song's group only used to steal gold from others, but the group occupying a used car complex is working directly under the vampires, and they kidnap humans for the vampires. When they arrive at the car complex, Songwoo feels like something is wrong, because this place is too quiet, and there are no guards around. T-Song's vampire friend is also tagging along with them. They hear screams from close by. They start silently observing the situation. There is a bear monster and a vampire going toe-to-toe. Bear is punching the vampire like a training bag. Songwoo notices chains on the hands of the bear. It turns out that bear was a human, and he couldn't select a class because his hands were tied. And then he turned into a bear and killed the other vampires. The last vampire again attacked the bear with its fangs and manages to injure it a little at this point. Both the vampire and the bear are at their limit. Both of them plunge at each other, but they get instantly wiped out by Songwoo's werewolf minions. He receives 35 gold for killing the bear, and he turns him into his minion. Hano spots the same bus Kyungsoo, the spearman, from school was driving. Jisoo thinks they were kidnapped by these vampires. T-Song is about to tell them the store's location, but his friend Yujin, which was turned into a vampire, has been possessed by real vampire boss. He is here to watch who has been killing his children. Vampire Lord gets to the point and tells Songwoo that he is a mere insect. He then uses his ability to inflict a lesser curse on Songwoo. Now Sangu needs holy magic to analyze and neutralize this curse. Vampire Lord starts spouting bullcrap, and Sangu kicks him with all of his force. There's a small red curse mark left on Sangu's hand, but it is not affecting Sangu for now. Hano is a priest, so maybe he can help Sangu with his curse. Hano tries to lift Sangu's curse, but his ability is too weak. Sangu has been marked by the Vampire Lord's exclusive skill, Trace of Blood, and his location will be exposed to the Vampire Lord after every 12 hours. Sangu's unique circumstances have triggered a special quest called No Country for Wicked Men.